Consult an advisor or conduct your own due diligence when making financial decisions. General principles discussed during this program do not constitute personal advice. This program is furnished by Dentist Advisors, a registered investment advisor. This is Dentist Money. Now, here's your host, Reese Harper.
Welcome to the Dentist Money Show, where we help dentists make smart financial decisions. I'm your host, Reese Harper, here with my trusty old co-host, Sir Ryan Isaac.
I think I am the oldest one here.
You are. You're older than me.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I brought treats today, though.
We need to. The studio audience knows that we have treats here up on our stand.
These are not just props. These are real pieces of buttery popcorn.
Okay, you just chewed on that.
No, I just chewed in the microphone. I'm sorry.
We have two props here up on stage. We have buttery popcorn and an icy.
That's extra.
When I walked in, I thought, what are these two props doing here on the stage? And I was told that it's because it furthers the storyline of my spending problem.
Well, today we're talking about spending, and you've got a story for us. The topic today is, do I spend too much money? That's the question.
So I'm going to tell a short story about myself.
It's not rhetorical.
It's not. The topic is really, do I spend too much money? I think we all wonder this sometimes.
Yeah, we all know the answer.
And we all know the answer. But the thing that was a little confusing to me is I saw an icy and some popcorn. Okay.
Yeah.
But an icy and popcorn, I didn't know how that related to the story I was about to tell. Because the story that I have to tell has to do with attending the theater.
There was a mixed message somewhere. Okay?
Now, live events is what I was specifically referring to, and I'm going to tell a story about today. We're talking about the Eccles Theater for my musicals, my symphony tickets. None of those places let you bring food into the actual theater.
The other option,
let alone ices and popcorn.
The other option, though, was to bring like a filet mignon and some potatoes and scallops and a piece of lobster tail.
Yeah, because
that's what you would eat before the actual theater.
Yeah,
but we can't. So we have popcorn and ices to represent the theater. Okay,
that's a good point.
Plus, I need to get some carbs in.
Well, if I was spending money only on popcorn and ices, then I wouldn't have a spending problem.
The answer, do I spend too much money, is no, because I
only buy popcorn and ices and go to the movie. So the challenge is, here's the story that I think the audience is probably dying to hear now.
Pins and needles. So
think about the things in your life that you like to spend money on. One of the things that I really like to spend money on is live events.
This is new.
Well,
you've always liked it.
I've never had any money to spend a lot of money on live events.
Okay.
Maybe the last 5 years it's really picked up.
Yeah.
So usually it was once a year where I would go to a concert, and then in high school I'd go once or twice a year. If I saved up all my money, I could drive like 5 hours away and finally get to a live event.
Yeah.
Because in the town where I grew up, there wasn't a lot of live event venues.
Now I went
to
the
local high school
once.
had some. I
went to Rupert, Idaho with you once, and there happened to be a live event that weekend. It was a rodeo.
We went to a rodeo together?
We didn't. I think, we did go, and the kids pet some sheep and goats, and that was like normal for you. And my kids were like, wow, look at these farm animals.
That was a live event. That was a live event. Now,
you're talking about different ones.
The cost of that live event, I think, was like a firm handshake for the person who brought the goat to the event.
Yeah,
okay?
the cost was the germs.
The germs that you got.
From all the animals.
People listening to this podcast who are farm people know that you're just defending us right now.
Yeah,
Thanks
for
mean. Stepping on the minorities.
Let's get back to the theater.
So here's the thing is I started out probably like 5 years ago buying a ticket occasionally to go to the theater.
Yeah.
With my wife, where I would get probably like some kind of taco beforehand, spend $10 on a taco, and then I'd go and spend another $25 on tier 2 back row seats. Yeah. Those are the ones that maybe were $50 or something, or $20. Okay.
All right.
As time passed, my food preferences have changed from tacos to
Disclaimer, not that they should evolve from tacos.
I still eat a lot of tacos.
It is, if you have the triangle food group pyramid, the whole thing should just say taco. In a big
you know the difference between ground beef though and steak in your taco.
Some like high quality fish or shrimp.
Okay. So over time, your food preferences start to change slightly. And now I can't hardly go to the theater without spending a lot more than I would have ever spent on a month's worth of tacos. All right.
Okay.
So food becomes a little bit more expensive, but really what happens is, let's break this down to the theater specifically. The Eccles Theater has 3 tiers and a orchestra section. So you have the bottom row, and then you have your first row, and your second row, and your third tier. And so if you get up on...
The show in the third tier is basically the back of people's heads.
Yes.
Okay.
It's really hard. Well, you can see, but you have to bring a spotting scope or binoculars to make out facial expressions of the actors.
Okay. What about a monocle?
Yeah.
Bring a monocle. That seems appropriate for the theater.
Yeah.
The theater.
Well, I keep one in the front breast pocket of my vest
Monocle.
as I'm approaching
And a staff.
the theater.
Okay.
But
Carry on.
looking out into the show, those tickets used to be just fine, and I used to be really excited to go. Just being there.
Like once a year or something.
Just being there was exciting. Then it turned into season tickets a few years later, okay? And season tickets luckily got me moved down a few tiers,
Okay.
but I was still up in the mezzanine section.
Okay.
And spending a lot more money and obligatorily going to shows that I wouldn't have probably gone to otherwise. Because you get the whole season.
Yeah.
If I just had to pick, I probably would have just selectively picked a few shows.
Like 2 or 3.
But now I go to every show because I have season tickets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at every show, I get
a nice meal.
a nice meal.
Okay.
And now this is kind of the year where I'm in crisis mode. I have the opportunity to buy some box seats that are right at the front of the theater. Okay. It'll quintuple my cost. It's like 5 times the cost, okay, of my good seats now. I have good seats. They're not amazing.
I might buy from you.
Yeah, they're not amazing, but they're
good.
They're good.
Yeah, they're good seats.
And so I had a struggle with this, and I went home to my wife, and I'm like, I think I've got a chance to buy these box seats, and
and you do need a monocle if you're in a box.
Yeah, and you definitely do.
Yeah.
Your dress code has to go up a little bit.
It does. Yeah, and you got to spend more money on clothing.
So I went to my wife and I told her the price of these box seats, and she kind of looked at me like, just started laughing. And I was like, oh, seriously?
There's your answer.
I'm like, well, I guess
that's how
there's
you
my
know
answer.
when you go home and you run it past your significant other.
When my
they
wife
laugh at
tells
you.
me that that's not good for our budget, then I'm the financial advisor. You know, you've got a spending problem.
When you run a budgeting item past a significant other, you have like 3 different steps. You have like acceptance, indifference, anger, and then just laughter at the bottom. Laughter's none of those things. Like, I think we should buy this thing and you get laughed at. It's like, there's your answer.
Yeah, so I think the reason I'm telling this story is because I think all of us probably have this area of our lives where slowly over time something kind of creeps up in cost. This isn't
probably multiple things.
Even
really.
if I did buy the box seats, it wouldn't break the bank, and I would survive, and things would be fine, and I would probably love my box seats. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely an income threshold that I will hit one day where those will maybe be something I would consider.
Lower percentage of the personal P&L.
Yeah, lower percentage of the personal P&L.
Yeah, but
right now it's still like a big stretch.
The point is that 3 years ago you would have laughed at yourself also.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now it's
funny how slowly things kind of just
creep up.
The slippery slope of theater tickets and food.
Yeah. And
pre-show food.
So I think what we want to talk about today is spending really is kind of a slippery, slow slide. And it's really sticky to have spending go down. Like you don't lose. Spending does not decline.
You can make
easily.
No. You can. It's easy to increase, but it's almost impossible to decrease.
Yeah, and it's just as important to have really accurate spending data in your financial plan as it is to have a really accurate net worth calculation. Mm-hmm. And so we want to talk about a few areas today of personal spending that we think will be good reminders for everyone on how they need to be able to focus on this issue.
Or 3, or reasons why the question, do I spend too much money? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
And why? So why? What's happening? Reason number one is we don't downgrade stuff.
That's a good point.
We see that all the time, and all of us, everyone listening, everyone in this room can acknowledge something in our lives that, I mean, it's crept up, it's gotten better, higher quality. Maybe it's food, maybe it's clothing, maybe it's cars, housing, maybe it's all of it, theater tickets.
Justin's golfing habits.
Yeah, the golfers. Any golfer listening's like, yeah, I've spent more money on clubs and dues.
Yeah,
as time has gone on.
And I'm at a country club, but I'm not at the country club.
Yeah, but okay, so downgrade, Justin. Get the clubs that cost half as much as the ones that you have right now. You know.
Well, the problem is when you get the country club membership, you got to get all the other things that go along with the country club membership, like the car and the nicer clubs and the nicer clothes, and
you better look good.
So Ryan's clubs wouldn't be good to bring to the country club.
I mean,
trick question. Don't own any.
You have to have a lot of self-confidence to bring Ryan's club to a country club.
It's so funny, man. It's so true. But I mean, there's just so many things. The point is that we don't downgrade. One good example is housing. We have an interesting perspective because we get to see people at the beginning of their just getting out of school, getting the first house that they're likely not going to stay in. We see the people in mid-career getting the dream home and all the stuff they always wanted. And then we see the people at the end of career. You just eat some popcorn. I'll just talk. You eat popcorn. We see people at the end of career that are in the huge house. Everyone's gone. There's landscaping maintenance. There's high utilities. There's furniture costs, repairs, all that kind of stuff. And the thought is always, when I'm older and my kids are gone and I don't need all this room, I'll totally downgrade. You know? But what really happens is you spend all the time paying off that mortgage. You have all the equity in the house. And then do people downgrade? Do people get downgraded houses in retirement just because now the kids are gone and, you know, they don't need the space anymore?
Well, usually they might be smaller, but they're pretty nice. When they downgrade, they really
don't
nice.
Downgrade quality is the point.
Yeah.
I mean, we know a fair amount of people in retirement that are still in very, very large homes that they won't leave.
Yeah.
They just won't leave.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that you've got kids and grandkids that have grown up and they're visiting and you want to have that space. And a lot of people don't end up sizing down their properties.
They don't size down. And the ones that do size down, if you have let's say a $500,000 house that you live in, and it's really big, you just go get a $500,000 house that's small and super really nice. Nicer neighborhood, nicer furnishings, nicer finish, right?
Yeah, and having gone through some of these decisions the hard way, I think that the thing I've learned is that there isn't anything that there is always something that you probably shouldn't buy. There's always something that you probably shouldn't spend your money on, even if you can afford it. Like, even if you can't afford it, there's probably a line. There's a line for everyone. And the line that you cross is different based on your income, your net worth, your liquidity, your career trajectory, like what you believe will happen and kind of confidently might know will happen. I think there's a difference between hoping and dreaming about the future and being realistic about it. And so I think that one of the things that I don't want people to feel like is that there isn't room for splurging and enjoying life. Like, I'm not going to give up my season tickets to my theater tickets. I'm sorry, Ryan. Even though
I don't think you should.
And I probably shouldn't. No. You know, because that's how you get your tickets.
Because that's how I get mine too. So I totally don't think you should give them up.
Yeah, and isn't that funny? Like, we know, like, it happens with all of our friends have something that we
like
use
the boat
that we love using. That's like, I think that's a good idea for you. I'm glad you have it.
In general, you should never buy a boat. Total waste of money. But my buddies who take me all the time, great investment. They should totally keep the boat.
Love it. They've done that. Such great memories. Great memories. Yeah. So I think the point here is that if you're not constantly evaluating whether you can keep up with this threshold you're gonna get to, for example, one of the like really big thresholds that kind of end up hurting people is, can you afford 2 houses? I think that's one where there's a lot of people that pick up that second home because they want a cabin or they want a vacation property. They don't want to stay and move from different
They want
resorts.
to create memories.
They want to create memories in a place. Nothing against that. I mean, for some people can afford it.
I've got great
and make
memories
it work.
because we had a family cabin.
Yeah, but that's like a level. Like that's an example of a level you move to that you can't go back from. Like take away the family cabin from everyone, and you're like the worst person in the world.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be ready to move to that level and make sure that that fits your net worth, your income, your budget, and your savings rate, and everything's going to be fine.
Yep.
I think cars are another great example, right?
Yeah, we listed that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just think of the car you drive now compared to the car you drove 10 years ago. Likely it's better. I've met a few people who were like, they got so sick of, I mean, there are some people that are like, I don't even care anymore. That's
an easier one to ditch on, though. Cars are it's hard. But if you were in a bind, I mean, I know a few people who bail on it. But housing's a little harder to bail on. But cars are still hard. Like if you've ever driven a car that is silent on the freeway,
has nice,
really quiet, great
seats,
tech, great AC, really comfortable
engine.
seats, accelerates nice, and then you go to something that's like
loud and noisy,
takes forever to heat up, and the AC doesn't work good, and it like brings in all this nasty air somehow, and you're like, how is this getting inside my car?
The easy thing to justify with cars though too is that it's literally like if you have a payment, it's like a few $100s of difference, between that one and the nice one. It's not that much.
Yeah,
that's what's tough. It's easy to go, it's $400, man. Let's just get the nicer car. It's totally worth it. It's hard to go back from it.
Yeah, and once you hit that level, like it's difficult. And so people usually end up hitting a point where they just migrate sideways on cars, right? But they usually don't downgrade. So that's a good one. Food, groceries, restaurants, we've talked about that.
Yep.
I mean, it really is hard to once you're used to eating nice food, you just have to be conscious of like, hey, spending, hundreds of dollars on a meal isn't like that's not a normal thing. You don't have to do that every time you go eat. You don't have to spend hundreds of dollars for two people. Now, does that happen?
It's a self-reflection.
That happens for me a lot. And I'm always like, where are the days when my ticket
was like $30
was like not 3 digits? Where are those days?
Yeah. There was a decimal after 2.
Yeah, mostly because mostly because you guys always come. Everyone comes with me.
So true.
And then expects me to pay for everything. Jeff,
you are a very.
Just kidding.
You have an incredible sense of finding good food, and you're a very generous fooder.
I feel bad. I can't have like a good meal while Jeff's eating asparagus.
Yeah. Shout out to asparagus.
All right, thank you, Justin. You can cut
food
that
for
out.
sure.
Just
what about
get Jeff involved here?
What about other like? There's a Q. We were talking the other day. He was like, think about your budget in a line item, even the small stuff, the little incidental kind of lifestyle things that we pay for. Who has Netflix? $10 to Spotify every month is the best $10 I spend. I use Spotify more than any other service.
Apple Music.
You really? I'm a Spotify.
I use it.
Really?
Well, I just enjoy it.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, think about how many little things do you pay for in your personal little P&L that would, if you had to get rid of it, you kind of be like, I don't really want to go. I don't want to go without unlimited playlists ever again in my whole life.
My Pluralsight membership.
Pluralsight?
Yeah, I
really?
love my Pluralsight.
Really?
I get to learn like new things like all the time. Like when I'm just randomly sitting there in bed, I like take a class on UX, or maybe I'll like read up on the latest charcoal drafting designs, or learn how to like type in certain mathematical formulas into a spreadsheet. I like this stuff.
Okay.
So I can't give it up though, because I've had it now. I feel like I have a little teacher always by the side of me. I'm like, I don't know that. So it's enjoyable, but I look at it and
a gym membership.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of little things too that would just be hard. And so the point of all this is it's hard to downgrade this stuff. It's really difficult to downgrade this stuff.
Have you guys heard that comedian Ryan Hamilton?
I watched it. We watched. He has a special on Netflix now.
Yeah, called Happy Face.
Yes.
And he talks about how impossible it is to cancel a gym membership.
Yeah.
And he's like, he calls them up and they're like, you have 2 options. You can either come into the office or you can write a letter. Those are the only two ways to cancel your membership.
It's hilarious, man.
And he's like talking about how he had to go to Walgreens and buy a packet of 50 envelopes just so he could have an envelope.
Yeah, and passes Jim on the way. Passes the gym to go buy the envelope. Yeah. Find that. Yeah, Ryan Hamilton on Netflix. Happy Face, right?
Yeah,
it's hard. The point is it's hard to unwind things.
Yeah.
Logistically, it can be hard too. Yeah.
Time to discuss personal spending problems. Number 2. Saying no is really hard to do.
Yep.
That's what I would summarize the second one at. The more money you make, the more people just start to show up.
There's more stuff to buy.
To sell you stuff.
Yes.
And bring you things.
It's amazing.
And opportunities.
There's so many things to buy when you have higher income.
It's like, how do I say no to like all these requests? And the second thing that starts to come is like family members start to ask more questions too. That's a hard one. Saying no to salespeople is really hard, but saying no to family members is hard too.
Yeah, we talked about this in episode 19 of the Dennis Money Show. It was called "Will Your Personality Cost You a Better Retirement?" There's a personality characteristic called, if you want to explain a little bit, the family steward.
Yeah, the family steward. You can read up on it in episode 19, listen up on it. But it basically is someone who someone who has a high propensity to help their family or wants to help their family
at
more
the expense of other
anything
things
else.
Sometimes. Yeah,
at the expense of their own personal finances.
We have met people who have higher savings rates into kids' college funds than their own retirement.
Yeah, and for a short period of time that might be okay, but you know it shouldn't. If you don't have enough money to fund your own retirement, funding kids' college at the expense of you getting any money put away, that's a risk. Mm-hmm. I think it has more to do with just constantly feeling like you need to support your family members at a maybe disproportionately high level. I do think that there's just a reality of being parents and grandparents that if you've earned enough money to be stable yourself, you want to help out your family.
For sure. You
want to see them enjoy their life, and sometimes you want to part with some of your money to help them through tough times. But a lot of times that comes at the expense of someone's own personal financial security.
Yeah.
And that's where it can be dangerous.
Well, sometimes those are the personalities too. And even more than thought out planning for a family member, sometimes it can just be cleaning up messes for family members. Some people just have bleeding hearts and they happen to have good incomes too. And they end up paying for things that maybe hurt them a little bit. It's not healthy. But that's another reason why spending can be difficult and go up without really knowing it's going to go up. Is it's hard to say no to family.
Yeah. I think it's hard to say no to yourself sometimes. That's probably the hardest one, because I think everyone wants to get rewarded for the hard work that they put into their lives. And sometimes that results in vacations, cars, houses, shopping, just things that we want. I mean, I can think of like 30 things I want right now that I can't buy. And I'm sure everyone can think of that same thing. It's like, well, yeah, I do want that.
One on my mind.
And I want this and I want that. And ultimately, there will never be a point in your life where you don't struggle with those emotions. It's not a moment when it's like, I finally have all the stuff that I wanted.
No, it's funny. I think about this a lot. I mean, if you just compare where you're at, I mean, most people to where you were 10 years ago, I mean, you have most of the stuff in life that you thought 10 years ago you always wanted, And in 10 years, you'll probably think the same thing. But I mean, it doesn't really change much.
Yeah. I think this is just a good checkpoint to kind of say, I think if you're not saying no to things that you want often enough, you're going to find yourself overspending so long that you're just out of cash and liquidity, and your working life gets extended. And I think it's really just about peace of mind every day, knowing that you have stability. That's an important aspect of this.
I was just going to say too, just for a little context, I think it's easy for everybody to get into a trap of thinking about people who make more money and think like, well, they probably don't struggle with wanting stuff they can't have, or they probably don't struggle with overspending because there's just so much money there. But I would just give, and I know that's a common feeling. I mean, everyone feels that way, but I would just kind of give people the context that even very, very high income people, like 7-figure high income people, still overspend. They still spend more than they should, even though the money's just rolling in, or there's still things that they can't buy that bothers them that they still want. It's kind of what you were saying. There's not a limit. There's not an income limit where you get to, you're like, it doesn't, now it doesn't matter what I spend.
Yeah.
And there's no, and everything's fine.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of this that happened to me this week. I was talking to somebody and they were frustrated about the fact that they couldn't afford to buy this $5 million boat on their own. It's a boat that you live on in this really nice lake in a certain part of the country, and
it's vague enough.
You live in this boat, but it's a vacation boat. Cool. It's a vacation boat that can only be used like 6 months out of the year, based on the weather of this lake. And this boat was costing $5 million. And this person was frustrated that they had to share it with 4 other people. And they're just mad that they only get like a fourth of the year, a fourth of the season in this $5 million boat.
It's pretty frustrating.
Yeah, it's like that's the example of where you get like, and I'm just
some people are like, I want air conditioning in my car.
Yeah, like
remember in the student days.
Like one of my big things, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this probably already have this item. I want a boat that is a fraction of the cost of this like life mansion boat.
Yeah.
And I'm just like hearing this story and the person's telling it to me like we're peers.
Yeah.
Like,
you get it.
You get it,
You
dude.
know how that goes. You know how frustrating that is. You're like, yeah.
And I know that like people that I'm friends with, probably people in this room, I know I've said stuff about my own finances where everyone else is looking at me like, bro, I wish I had your problems.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's a waterfall of it's all relative, and we never will have enough stuff to keep us totally happy unless that stuff isn't where we get our happiness from, and it's okay to want things.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to have those goals to look forward to. Like I'm working my tail off every day so that I can have that vacation, or I can get that home, or I can get that boat one day, or I can have that kind of lifestyle that I want. I want that country club membership. Like these are good goals to shoot for.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I mean, I'm totally a big fan of. You got to enjoy some of it now.
Yeah.
The whole point of financial planning isn't to wait till you're 70 to finally do something fun in life. Like that's so lame. That's so boring. That's not how it works.
Well, and when you're between 60 and 80 at the point you're going to slow down, like you're not really it's a different phase of life, right? You're moving at different pace. Your life is definitely not as hectic as it used to be. Some of our clients are probably more active in their 70s and 80s than I will be in my 50s, okay?
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think the point we're making is when you want stuff and you really want it, it's not okay to accelerate the time frame that you get things by leveraging yourself, by borrowing, by living too much in debt with too little cash, and just using credit to get everything you want. And so there really is an unlimited way. There's an unlimited like amount of money that you can borrow to buy things.
Yeah.
If you really want to.
Yeah.
And I was
which is the kind of the third point, that it's so much easier to get stuff now because of that.
Yeah.
And then just worry about it. It's so easy to just be like, my future income will handle this payment later. I'm getting it now.
Yeah, like I'm going to make good money, so I'll figure it out later.
Yes.
My grandpa told me once I think he's in his late 90s now.
I like your grandpa stories, man.
And
90-year-old farmer. He still works on his farm, doesn't he?
He's more of a rancher.
Okay.
But he does have a farm.
For
and
us
a ranch.
city folk, that seems like the same thing.
For you city slickers. So he told me, he said, it's sure a lot easier to borrow it than it is to pay it back. He probably said it more like, it's easy to borrow it, but it's real hard to pay it back. And he may have cussed.
Like a pig analogy
and
some like anatomy of a farm animal in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the point was,
it's like, why buy the cow?
Yeah, yeah. You can milk a cow with 3 udders, but you sure can't. Yeah, you're like, okay, it's debt, right? Debt.
So what he was saying was, it's just really easy to borrow it. It's easy to borrow, right? But paying it back is always frustrating. And I've been in that situation before where, I mean, everyone listening to this is like, yeah, like a 15-year amortization schedule or a 10-year loan, a 30-year mortgage, like a 20-year loan, even a 7-year loan or a 5-year loan on equipment. It's like, I got it really fast. I got the thing that I wanted really quickly, and I got to use it right away. but within like a couple weeks, it wasn't that cool anymore.
Yeah.
And then I had to
Dang, I
spend
hate
like
that feeling.
7 years paying
Paying
for
on this
something
thing.
that I didn't really like I mean, after a while, I didn't really like it. I could say a house kind of gets to that point for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But that might be the only thing that you're like,
You got to, I mean.
But yeah, I still have people that they get over leveraged and they look back and go, man, I'm still paying for this thing and I don't know if I really wanted it and maybe I overdid it. And
It's highly likely you need to get a mortgage for a house.
Yes.
That's highly likely.
Yeah.
But you still can get too much house where at first you're like, no, that's totally worth the extra debt. You know, that extra 3,000 square feet.
Paying it
for
back
sure.
is hard.
And then
it's just painful.
You never visit that west wing of the house after you've, bought and you're like,
Yeah,
this
we
is
were
lame,
you and me
man.
were on a mountain bike ride yesterday
Yes.
in the top of the hills with Q.
Yep.
And we saw a house that is probably like 25,000 square feet.
There's a few of them over there.
And we knew the original buyer / construction owner of this home.
Yep.
And we were like, they didn't even visit like most of that house.
Like you don't even spend time in it.
Most of that
I feel that way
house.
now. My house isn't a super big house. And it is. I mean, you can overextend yourself. So there's probably things that are worth financing that you have to at some point. I mean, we don't tell our clients to pay cash for everything they ever have to buy in a practice over 30 years.
There's a lot of things worth financing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's things in the business. I mean, if you're going to build out a space that's going to cost you $300,000, it's probably worth getting easy, cheap financing that Dennis can get so easily versus ripping $300,000 out of your investment accounts.
I don't know that there's a lot of examples we can give of like,
Don't
what stuff you shouldn't borrow money for.
Don't borrow for a couch.
But you know stuff. We don't even need to list the things.
I said couch, but don't list them.
We don't need to list the things because you know what things you should not be borrowing money for.
You can feel it in your gut.
The more nuanced point here is that you don't need to borrow as much as you think you do for the things that you want. Like, if you want to go build out your practice, there really is a way you can do a build out for $250 a foot. There's a $200 a foot build out. There's a 185. There's a 150. There's a 90. There's a 70. There's a $30 a foot build out.
Yeah,
there
folding
are,
chairs.
and all of them end up functioning at some level.
Yeah,
there will be a point that a certain build out will be more expensive than you'll ever recoup in your working life
or care about after.
There is a diminishing value
Yeah.
for some things.
Yep, and everyone has their different things too that matter.
That matter.
Yeah,
and if for you can't stand practicing dentistry in a space that has a horrible like low grade industrial carpet that you just can't stand looking at, then maybe you need to pay more for that, or maybe you do have to have better surfaces and better treatments on your walls, and you need to have better decor and a better build out because that's just the way you want to live.
Yep.
But that excess that you might choose to have in that one area, it's going to come at the expense of another area in your life, and that's okay. You just need to make sure that you're not able to splurge in all of the areas that you would ideally like to.
Yep.
Because an excess in one area has to come at the cost of another. So because I have my theater tickets, I still drive a Chevy truck. All right? I still drive a Chevy truck, and it's not the best truck in the world. I would have rather had
bargain shopped it.
I could have had a truck that would have cost me another $30,000 or $40,000, but I spent less money on my truck because
you got that theater box seat staring you in the face,
and it's hard to park at the theater. I'll be honest with you. Yesterday we went into park the truck in downtown, and the parking attendant, he looked at me and he said, he's like, "Sir, this might be this might not fit very well here. I'm going to go ahead and recommend that you park in another lot." I'm like, "No, we're going to find something in here. We'll figure it out." Anyway,
I'm going to force it. Okay. So let's recap then. Do I spend too much money? Maybe. Probably yes. One reason could be we don't tend to downgrade. And be conscious of that every time you're upgrading a house, a car, food, clothing, something, vacations. Once you stayed in the nice hotel, I mean, if you've been in a nice hotel before or rented out like a nice vacation home or a nice condo or something, it's hard to go back to the crappy one.
Yep.
It's really, really hard. So be aware that it's we don't downgrade very well. And don't fall into the trap of thinking, once I'm in retirement and the kids are gone, I kind of just won't care about as much, and so I'll totally downgrade. I'll totally live in the smaller house. I'll drive the cheaper car. I'll eat at cheaper restaurants. I won't travel as much. That's totally not true. We don't downgrade. Number 2, saying no is really hard to do. It's hard to say no to salespeople, to family members, and to ourselves.
Yeah.
Number 3 was, it is just easier to worry about stuff later. It's easy to just put the burden on our future income and get what we want now.
Yeah. And the reason this is such an important topic is that spending is an essential part of your retirement calculation. It's a variable that we have to be honest about in order to assess how much money you're going to need. I know that the fact that I am a theater going,
truck driving,
slightly more expensive meal
restaurant
person means I have to accumulate more for my retirement than someone else might. And I know what number that is, and I'm going to work to get to that number. But I'm not going to work harder than that goal, and I'm not going to work any less hard. I'm just going to work towards that goal. And I think the trick is knowing what you're spending allows you to finally set realistic life goals, because you're able to say, this is kind of the lifestyle that I want. And restricting the things you want completely all the time isn't going to be sustainable. Like just telling yourself no all the time, I can't have it, I can't have this, I can't do that. Eventually, you're just going to get frustrated and go and just spend all your money. So what's important is say, realistically, this is what it's going to take for me to be happy. And I know I'm going to have to make some trade-offs and say no in this area, but I want my lifestyle to feel and look like this. And so if there are things in your current budget that you want to be able to have in the future, but you can't yet afford or you're not paying for, I mean, that all comes into this calculation of what your spending really is. And I think right now what you're currently spending, if it's inflated above and beyond what it should be, and you're having a hard time doing any of these things that we talked about today, the amount of money you need for retirement could be extraordinarily high.
Or the
if you can't make adjustments.
How long you need to work.
How long you need to work.
Yeah.
And so it's just important with your financial advisor to have an actual conversation, not about some estimate of what you think you're spending, but tracking your spending in a realistic way, having an advisor who's like understanding of the choices you want to make and not be overly judgmental about the lifestyle decisions that you're choosing to make, but help you build a retirement plan that matches up with those goals. That's really crucial. And I think that your advisor, a good advisor, can help build a financial plan that supports the kind of lifestyle that you want to have and give you appropriate pushback when you're starting to probably when your spending gets to a point where it's outside of what's realistic for your career.
Okay, thanks. Thanks to everyone for listening or for watching. You could have been watching this whole thing on YouTube while Reese eats popcorn and I drink my slushy. Is that what they're called? Ices.
These are ices, Ryan.
I love ices. I'm sorry. If you have any questions for us, we'd love to answer those questions. We love talking to people. You can call us on our phone number, which is 833-DDS plan. It's very dental specific, that phone number.
Yes.
833-DDS plan. If you'd like to book a consultation, put something on the calendar, go to dentistadvisors.com. Right at the top of the website, there's a link. You can schedule at your own convenience, and then you'll have a spot on our calendar where we can talk. If you want to leave a comment or question on any of these episodes, go to dentistadvisors.com/listen. Find all the episode lists and leave us comments or questions. We love hearing the feedback, and thanks again.
Carry on.